Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Hope so you all are fine. Students, today we are going to discuss about the osmoregulatory function of the kidney. We know it very well, the kidney is helping in the osmoregulation. If you remember, then we have learned before that what is a osmoregulation. Osmo means water and regulation means to regulate. Basically, kidney is also regulating the water in our body. It do not let high amount of the water inside the body, as well as the kidney do not let the low amount of the water inside our body. Because if the water concentration is going to increase, our body fluid will become dilute. Whereas if the water concentration is going to decrease, our body fluid will become concentrated. So how the kidney is managing this thing, today we are going to learn about it. Before going on, I want to give you the definition of the osmoregulation. The definition is that the regulation of the concentration of the water and salt in the blood and other body fluid. Before going on, I just want to let you to repeat the structure of the nephron. Basically, this is the glomerulus. The glomerulus used to pass the glomerular filtrate into the Bowman capsule. In the Bowman capsule, from the Bowman capsule, it enters into the proximal convoluted tubule and then to the loop of Henle. In the loop of the Henle, the water used to reabsorb back into the blood, while it is moving towards the distal convoluted tubule. In the distal convoluted tubule, the water is going to reabsorb again into the blood capillaries, and then it will move towards the collective duct, and the material which is going to move further will be known as the urine. And then the urine is going to pass toward the pelvis, and then pelvis to the ureter, and then ureter to the urinary bladder. When the urine is going to fill in the urinary bag, then this is going to discharge through a tube known as a urethra. Students, if you remember, then we have already learned about the structure of the nephron, in which I have explained you in very much detail that when the blood is going to pass through the glomerulus, what is happening when it is going to pass through from a glomerulus, the blood pressure, due to the blood pressure, the most of the material like salt, water, glucose, amino acid is going to transfer into the Bowman capsule. And from the Bowman capsule, it used to transfer to the proximal convoluted tubule. If you remember, I have told you before that with the help of the active transport, the salt material used to remove out and reabsorb back into the body, as well as glucose, amino acid, water and salt is going to reabsorb back into the blood vessels. Then the water is also going to the salt, glucose, amino acid and the water and the salt, they are going to reabsorb into the blood vessel by the help of the active transport, while the water is going to transfer to the reabsorb back to the blood vessel by simply osmosis. Now what will happen, the left material, the 99% of the water is and other material is going to reabsorb like glucose, amino acid. 100% amino acids are going to reabsorb back into the proximal convoluted tubule. And then what will happen next? Then the left material is going to transfer to the loop of the Henle. As I discussed before, that in the loop of the Henle there are two limbs. The one is the descending loop of Henle and other one is the ascending loop of the Henle. In descending loop of the Henle, the water used to reabsorb from the loop of the Henle into the blood vessel, and then next to that the material is going to then transfer towards the ascending loop of the Henle. In the ascending loop of the Henle, the salt used to reabsorb by the help of the active transport. Similarly, then the left material is going to transfer towards the distal convoluted tubule. In the distal convoluted tubule, again the water is going to reabsorb, and then it is going to transfer towards the collective duct. from the distal convoluted tubule, it will transfer to the collective duct, and whatever is going to pass through from the collective duct will be the urine. About the osmoregulation of the kidney, our body is facing two situations. Let's suppose if we are taking the high amount of the water, if we are taking more amount of the water, what will happen? Our body fluid will have high amount of the water. When our body fluid will have the high amount of the water, the less water is going to reabsorb, and more water is going to remove. The more water is going to remove, and in that case, when more water is going to remove, what will happen? The urine will be diluted. Have you ever felt that situation that when you are taking more amount of the water, you used to pass dilute urine, which is pale yellowish in color and less, you can say that having the less dark color, a light dark color, as well as you used to pass more urine. So when we used to take the high amount of the water, what will happen? Our body fluid the concentration of the water in our body fluid used to increase. So in that case, the kidney used to reabsorb less amount of the water and used to remove more amount of the water, because our body do not require that much amount of the water. That's why the urine which we are going to remove out from the body is that diluted one. Mostly in the summer cases, we used to drink high amount of the water. Due to what happens, when we used to take high amount of the water, we used to pass maximum urine, which is basically a less concentrated, a less light in color, as well as we used to pass more urine. So in that case, what will happen? In that case, basically, the proximal convoluted tubule is going to reabsorb less amount of the water into the blood vessel. It means that more water is going to transfer towards the loop of the Henle, and in the loop of the Henle, the less amount of the water is going to reabsorb back into the blood vessels. Similarly, the more water is going to transfer toward the distal convoluted tubule, as well as here, a very less amount of the water is going to transfer or reabsorb in the blood vessel. Similarly, in that case, the high amount of the water is going to transfer into the collective duct, and that will be in the form of the urine. So if we are taking the high amount of the water, or body fluid will have the high amount of the water than the body requires. In that case, the water used to reabsorb less and remove more. So the more a diluted urine used to produce. What is basically second condition? When the body is going to take less amount of the water, the body fluid will have less amount of the water. Due to that, the maximum water is going to reabsorb. The maximum water is going to reabsorb and less urine is going to remove. Less water is going to remove. Due to what? The urine is going to be the concentrated one. It means that the less amount of the urine is going to produce. What is the second condition, students? That when our body is going to have a less amount of the water, when we are taking less amount of the water, the body fluid will have the less amount of the water. It means that the body needs water. So the body is going to save the water. How the body is going to save the water? They are going to do the maximum reabsorption. The body is going to do the maximum reabsorption. It means that nephron is going to do the maximum reabsorption and less water is going to pass. Due to what? The concentrated urine is going to produce. Student, it is very easy that if you're going to remember the condition of the fasting. You know very well about the fasting. In the fasting, what is happen? You used to take the less amount of the water, due to which the concentrated urine used to produce. In the case of the fasting, our body fluid needs the water. So our body used to save the water. In that case, how they save the water? The kidney is playing the major role. The maximum reabsorption of the water used to take place through the nephron, and less water is going to pass towards the collective duct, so that the very concentrated urine is going to produce. If you are going to look here carefully, then what will happen? When the water is going to pass towards the Bowman capsule, so what will happen? The water will transfer to the proximal convoluted tubule. Here, a very less amount of the water is going to pass toward the loop of Henle, while rest of the water is going to reabsorb by the proximal convoluted tubule. Similarly, in the loop of the Henle, in the descending loop of the Henle, the maximum water is going to reabsorb. Then in the distal convoluted tubule, the more water is going to reabsorb. Similarly, when this material is going to transfer into the collective duct, then in that case the more water is going to reabsorb. In that, nephron is going to work on the maximum reabsorption of the water. When the maximum reabsorption of the water will take place, the less or the concentrated urine is going to produce. If you are going to look at this image, in that case you will observe that the normal water concentration is basically absorbing. Here the normal water amount of the water is actually basically absorbed. This is the normal function of the nephron when the nephron is working normally, when the nephron is basically absorbing the normal amount of the water. But when the water concentration is going to decrease in the body, then what will happen? In that case, when the water concentration is going to decrease in the body, the maximum water is going to reabsorb. You can see in the descending loop of Henle, in the distal convoluted tubule, and even in the collective duct, the maximum water is going to reabsorb to maintain the osmoregulation, to maintain the good amount of the water in the body fluid, which is required by the body fluid. Is it clear to you? Hope so you get that. Students, now do less reading. Osmoregulation is defined as a regulation of the concentration of the water and the salt in the blood and other body fluid. Kidney plays an important role in osmoregulation by regulating the water content of blood. It is an important process, and excessive loss of the water concentrates the body fluid, whereas excess intake of the water dilute them. As I told you before, beta, that if you are going to drink more water, then our body fluid will become diluted. And if you are going to take less amount of the water, obviously our body fluid will get concentrated. When there is an excess water in the body fluid, kidney form diluted, it means hypertonic. Diluted means beta, that more water, and hypertonic means less concentration of the salt in the urine. For this purpose, kidney filter more water from the glomerular capillary into the Bowman capsule. Similarly, less water is reabsorbed and abundant dilute urine is produced. It brings down the volume of the body fluid to normal. When there is a shortage of the water in body fluid, kidney filters less water from glomerular capillaries and the rate of reabsorption of the water increases. Less filtration and more reabsorption produce small amount of the concentrated. It's concentrated means beta, less amount of the water. Hypertonic means that more salt. It increases the volume of the body fluid to normal. The whole procedure is under hormonal control. Hope so you get that, student. In the next class, we are going to discuss about the disorder of the kidney. Still that, you have to keep a very good care of yourself and do the learning by your heart. Best of luck. Allah Hafiz. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.